One Piece has a very interesting line of characters. A grand line. And we're here to rank some of the strongest characters in One Piece. But before that, make sure to like and subscribe. Now, on with the video. Oh, wait, spoilers up ahead. Now we'll start this off with Aokiji. You already know how strong he is with his ice abilities. Aokiji is one of the most powerful characters in the anime, up there with the strongest of the bunch. He possesses the power of the Ice Devil Fruit, we'll call it that for ease, and he's able to masterfully use his haki. Aokiji's ice powers might not seem that strong on the surface because, it's just ice, but the way he utilizes his ice powers, the level of control and reach is just insane. He has mastered his ice abilities to unmatchable levels. He even held off against Whitebeard, defeated Diamond Jozu without much of a struggle, defeated Doflamingo, and even held off Sanji, Zoro, and Luffy all at once. All of these characters are really powerful on their own and not to be messed with, but this shows the level of strength Aokiji possesses. Not to mention his crazy reach with his ice powers, freezing really vast areas without even a sweat, and even changing the weather. Truly a good one on this list, but yes, we have better. We shouldn't underestimate a frail old man, because he could turn out to be a master swordsman with the power of all three haki. Silver's Rayleigh is particularly powerful because he's a character that doesn't even have the power of the Devil Fruit. Yet, even without such power, his own combat skill and strength is incomparable to even some of the characters higher up on this list, because imagine if he had a Devil Fruit. Wouldn't he be completely broken? Rayleigh is not someone to be messed with, as many of the strongest characters acknowledge his strength. His name even caused Blackbeard to run away from Amazon Lily. We included him on this list for a reason, because if you consider Prime Rayleigh, yeah, goes up pretty high on any list, doesn't he? We're going to talk about Sengoku for this one, and we would really like to emphasize how underrated he really is. Sengoku usually ranks lower than Akainu, and we do believe he deserves a higher spot, but it is tough to deny that current Sengoku might have trouble against Akainu if they were to fight. Sengoku has a Devil Fruit, which allows him to possess enhanced levels of strength and create powerful shockwaves rivaling the Tremor Fruit. He's managed to stop an enraged Garp, and even Goldie Roger acknowledges him as someone worth fighting. He really is overshadowed by these other characters who have displayed their strength more than he has, because Sengoku is more of a strategist than someone hands-on in a battle. But how can anyone sideline him? Do you know he faced off against Shiki alongside Garp? Shiki, who is Goldie Rogers' rival? A rival of that guy, and Sengoku fought him. Can you imagine? He's a fleet admiral for a reason. Come on, you guys. And if that doesn't convince you, he has the ability to use all three haki, something that only a handful of characters can actually do. Sakazuki, or better known as Akainu, either a fearsome foe or a terrifying enforcer of justice. We could call him a rival to Aokiji, but his feats are much more than his. Starting off with how in their 10-day battle, he defeated Aokiji and severely injured him. The Master of Magma and the consumer of the Magma Devil Fruit. Again, for the sake of ease, we'll call it that. Don't mind it too much, okay? Akainu is a really terrifying antagonist with monstrous strength and a sense of justice. His Devil Fruit is even said to be the highest in offensive power, which makes sense when you think about it, since his powers can even change the terrain of an area. He can summon entire volcanoes. Akainu is ruthless, which makes him even more deadly, as he's also fought against a weakened Whitebeard, causing him injury but also tanking all of the damage from him, which were truly devastating blows. But that's not all, as he also fought two of Whitebeard's strongest men, Marco and Vista, all on his own. Blackbeard is the only one with the power of two Devil Fruits, the first one being his own and the other one being taken from Whitebeard. Still, he's the only one in the entire realm of One Piece to be known to have two of them. That alone makes him one of the most powerful characters, but that's too simple, because it isn't just that he possesses two of them, it's also that he possesses the two most powerful ones. His original Devil Fruit gives him the power of darkness, which allows him to control gravity, make black holes, and reduce targets to nothingness. That's already way too dangerous to be held by someone like Blackbeard, but with him having stolen Whitebeard's Tremor Fruit, now he has the power of destruction as well, and some say it has the power to destroy the entire world. Plus, Blackbeard has mastered the ability to use both fruits at the same time. That's really a force to be reckoned with. In any anime, the main character is supposed to be the strongest. They are the main character after all. They're supposed to come out on top with every enemy they face, even the strongest ones, and that's why we have Luffy. Luffy is a particularly special anime protagonist because not many are as far-reaching as he is, and he does have his struggles because of how Oda said himself, you can't make the protagonist too strong. And yeah, that might be true, but Luffy has faced off against the strongest on this list and even managed to at least land a hit. The ones he defeated, though, we're all familiar with. Kaido. And he keeps powering up to all these forms that are just so overpowered. Gear 5. He can even use all 3 haki. In the beginning, we thought he was just a stretchy guy, but there is so much more and probably more to come. But even before all these enemies that he had defeated, he was sort of overpowered already, as some of the greatest threats and challenges he faced off against had some trouble with Luffy. And then, of course, he eventually defeated them, although it took a few tries, earning him a bounty of more than 1 billion berries. We're trying to keep this as less spoilery as possible. Wait, there are hints that he could be Joy Boy? Oops, spoilers. Dracula Mihawk, the arch-enemy of Shanks and the coolest character ever. Mihawk is currently one of the strongest swordsmen in the world of One Piece, and without any sort of devil fruit powers, making him truly formidable and actually a powerful character. We've seen him hold off his opponents with just a small knife, and even keep up with Luffy's speed at Gear 2. But that's not all. Now you think we're done here, but just the slashes from Mihawk's sword can split entire ships and icebergs in half. There's no telling what else Mihawk is capable of, because sadly, we haven't seen that many displays of his power throughout the series, and we've never really seen him get serious because he's never needed to. But this is definitely a guy of monstrous strength. She's a mother that we're all afraid of, and you know who we're talking about. That's right, Big Mom. A character of monstrous appearance comes with monstrous strength and power. Even without using her devil fruit, she is a very formidable opponent, as it is said that no weapon can pierce her skin, and we have seen destructive blows hit her without her having so much as a scratch. She can tank very lethal attacks and deal very devastating blows without even being completely serious about it. It's literally a cakewalk for her to be fighting against the toughest opponents. And speaking of that, her greatest display of strength is her fight against Kaido, where they fight for 2 days, and at the end of the battle, Big Mom doesn't even have a scratch on her. If she would use her devil fruit with all this strength that she already has, she's way too overpowered, as she can manipulate souls and even take her opponent's life force. Under certain conditions, but of course we have to nerf a character this powerful, and for that we have her fragile mental state to weaken her, or her urge to eat, and that sounds really sad. Shiki, the archenemy and rival of Goldie Roger. If this guy is the adversary of the Pirate King, you can only imagine how strong he really is. In fact, it took the efforts of both Garp and Sengoku in their prime to be able to defeat Shiki and capture him. But even then, Shiki survived the fight against them both and fought them head-on, 2 against 1. We haven't really seen much of Shiki to be able to understand how powerful he actually is, but from what we have seen and what we know, he's a really tough opponent and a really strong character. His devil fruit allows him to levitate and transform even whole islands into the shape he chooses. But the drawback is that he cannot levitate people or animals. Still, with the way that Shiki utilizes his devil fruit shows his cunning in battle as well. The guy lost his legs to escape from the world's most secure prison. And even without his legs, he wasn't someone you could mess with. His name is known as one of the legendary pirates for a reason, and despite his lack of accomplishments in battle, we think he deserves this spot on the list just because of the implications of his power alone. Known to be the strongest creature in the world, for this entry we have Kaido. He is a threatening presence to all those that know him. There are entire armies and really powerful characters that are afraid to face off against them one-on-one, fearful of his might. Even Big Mom said that Luffy couldn't win against Kaido on his own. Her acknowledgement of Kaido's strength speaks for itself. Even before Kaido had his devil fruit abilities, he was considered a really powerful warrior. And after the fruit gave him the powers of a dragon, he became even more unstoppable. Kaido has mastered his fruit to the point where he can even use some of his abilities in his human form, and he's one of the few characters to be able to use all 3 haki. It took Luffy 3 tries to finally be able to defeat him, and in Kaido's lifetime, he has only lost 8 battles. His entire lifetime! His dragon form is able to create whole tornadoes with just a swift move, and he can destroy entire mountains with his attacks. We need no introduction for this character, as we've seen him time and time again in the series as one of the most prevalent and overpowered characters. The proof of his strength comes from the fact that, first of all, he's missing an arm and is still able to scare off and fight against the most powerful opponents. And second, he doesn't even have devil fruit powers. Even without the fruit, his strength is recognized by the mightiest, such as Whitebeard and Garp, and he's able to strike fear in the hearts of those who hear his name, such as Blackbeard. And he was able to intercept Kaido during the Battle of Marineford. He can even get an audience with the 5 elders despite the bounty on his head because, well, he's Shanks, and one look from him can have opponents go unconscious or even just run away. Yes, he uses his haki, but still, Shanks is currently one of the strongest pirates in the series, and we would love to see more of what he's able to do. With only one arm, that is, with just a single arm, that really is just crazy. Monkey D. Garp, one of the strongest admirals in the Marine. Vice Admiral, but don't let that fool you on how powerful he really is. Again, Garp is one of those characters that's been emphasized throughout the series as a really strong character, but we've been unable to see what he can really do. It isn't like he's completely lacking in his displays of power, but we'd just like to see more. Garp is one of those characters who does not own a devil fruit, but still, he's able to defeat someone as powerful as Rox D. Zebek, and is recognized by the most dangerous opponents as being a really powerful character. His signature and most powerful move is using his fists, giving him the infamous title Garp the Fist, being able to destroy entire mountains with a single strike. Edward Newgate. We all know how this one ends, but we must honor his memory. One of the strongest men in the world, and one of the ones actually closest to the One Piece, Whitebeard was a really fun and interesting character. Despite his power and strength, he was a compassionate guy. You couldn't help but love him. His devil fruit gave him the ability of tremors, or quakes, said to have enough power that it could bring destruction to the entire world. Everyone recognized Whitebeard as the strongest. He was a respected pirate and a kind one. He was able to fight on par with Goldie Roger, and during the Battle of Marineford, we actually witness how powerful he truly is, fighting off against the strongest but still standing tall, even in death. He suffered some of the most lethal blows but still stood and fought. The world government planned to send the most powerful forces to fight against Whitebeard, but even then, it was believed that their chances were slim. Throughout the series, there is evidence of how strong he was. But in Whitebeard's own words, "I cannot be the strongest forever." It was foreshadowing, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm sad now. The greatest pirate in all of One Piece and the owner of the One Piece, we have the Pirate King Goldie Roger. Roger's strength only came from his mastery of all 3 haki and his own power. For someone without the devil fruit, even after his death, he's known as one of the strongest and still recognized in strength by many, such as Kaido, Whitebeard, Garp, and many of the legends. He managed to accomplish the most difficult feat of all, conquering the Grand Line, and had the highest bounty of more than 5 billion berries. He's also the one who was able to defeat Rox D. Zebek alongside Garp. Sadly, his reign ended earlier in the series due to his illness and eventually his execution, which is why we do not know what else he would have been capable of. But he was someone who did not fear death, even in his final moments. We have heard tall tales of Rox D. Zebek, and many of them earn him this spot as number 1. Rox was a ruthless man with the ambition of becoming the king of the world, and it was this ambition that led him to be destructive and cruel towards anything in his path that would stop him from reaching his goal. The world government considered Rox to be a significant threat, and as evidence, it took the efforts of both Goldie Roger and Garp to be able to defeat him. 2 of the strongest characters in the series needed to team up to defeat this guy. And this is also what earned Garp his hero title. Even Kaido recognized Rox as an opponent worth fighting, giving us an idea of the kind of strength that Rox had. Not much is known about this character as of yet, but everything we know so far is proof of his terrifying might. Now you might be wondering, where are the top of this list, such as Imu or Shimotsuki Ryuma and Monkey D. Dragon to name a few? And we'll just give them some honorable mentions for now, as there's not much information on them at the moment, so it's difficult to gauge the extent of what they can do and where they would actually place on this list. But anyway.
Bleach is back with its adaptation of the 1,000-year Blood War arc. Wow, that feels kind of weird to say, right? But it's true, and I'm sure Bleach fans everywhere are rejoicing that one of the most popular IPs in anime is finally getting its conclusion. And to celebrate such a joyous occasion, I thought we'd do a ranking of the strongest characters in Bleach. And yes, I know there's never a set rank because everything is basically subjective, so there might be a few characters on here that you disagree on placement. But if that's the case, please let me know afterwards in the comments below, okay? Cool. Who's number 1? Who barely makes the cut at number 10? I'm just so happy that I'm comfortable adding a lot of 1,000-year Blood War arc characters, but there will be some slight spoilers for that, so just an FYI. Let's discuss right now. Yeah, there was no way I wasn't going to put Yhwach first. It's practically a no-brainer. A lot of people call him Your Majesty or the Almighty, which kind of gives you a good idea of just how strong he is. The Almighty is the most powerful character in Bleach. I mean, even if we weren't ranking power levels, I have to put him that high just for his mustache alone, right? What an incredible piece of facial hair. Anyways, let's talk about his power levels. The character has an abundance of powers and abilities that make him a nightmare to fight, and that's what you get when you're the son of the Soul King, I guess. He was locked away for almost 1,000 years, and upon his release, he almost brought the end to all of our heroes. I'm sure everyone just wished he stayed locked away, but it makes for an amazing antagonist to the story. I mean, and with some of his abilities, I'd be super impressed if I wasn't so terrified. Just to give one example, he was able to give power to the Stern Ritter when the group performed a ritual to drink the Almighty's blood. The results were that everyone who participated walked away with a very special and unique power that made them super strong too. And that's just one small element to the Almighty's power levels, and I could spend this whole video talking about each of his abilities and how devastating they are. I mean, if you're the main character of your shonen anime and manga, then you better be pretty powerful. So yeah, Ichigo is the next strongest character in Bleach. Because he inherited a massive amount of spiritual power and skill thanks to his Shinigami dad and his Quincy mother who had a hollow inside of her, Ichigo already had a great base level of power and only grew more capable and powerful over time. And his potential is overall frightening. It's been said that in the 1,000-year Blood War arc, he doesn't actually use all of his power, but if he were to ever use all of his latent power, all of his Shinigami power, all of his hollow, and all of his Quincy powers at the same time, then it's beyond comprehension how strong he could be. It's been great to track Ichigo across Bleach's history and watch him continue to level up in interesting ways, while also introducing other characters who can still challenge him. But he's certainly come a long way from where we first met him, and overall, his arguably strongest ability is his power to learn. He has an advanced growth rate, which allows him to master complex techniques and skills in a short amount of time. The most famous probably being how he achieved Bankai in 2.5 days, where it takes most Shinigami 10 years to reach that. Yeah, there were some extenuating circumstances there, but still, that's crazy. And his progress never stops. I can't wait to watch this final 1,000-year Blood War arc play out in the new anime so we can keep seeing his skills increase. I mean, even this number 3 positioning is open for debate. I really had to put Ichigo at number 2, but you could easily make the case that Yamamoto could have moved up a spot. But Ichigo is the main character, and one of those will continue to go stronger and stronger forever types that made it impossible for me to put him anywhere else. Which is a real shame because Yamamoto is so cool. And yeah, there's that pesky problem of him being totally wrecked by the Almighty, but I mean, who wasn't, am I right? Where Ichigo has the ability to learn complex skills in a short amount of time, Yamamoto is essentially the opposite, where he's actually taken all the time to really learn his skills. And he's been honing his abilities for over 2 millennia. Yeah, of course he's going to be powerful with all that time on his hands to train, and he has such a great variety of skills as well that make him insanely strong. His Bankai in particular is one worth highlighting. Like, I tell you that it's basically controlling fire, and that doesn't sound very cool, but if I tell you that he can control heat that's over 15 million degrees, and suddenly it makes his Bankai the most powerful in all of Bleach's history. Aizen's surprise twist and the reveal of his true villainy still stands as one of the best surprises in all of anime, and his ability to hide in plain sight for so long and then fake his own demise only to reveal himself to be this grand villain sort of plays into what makes him such a strong bad guy in the first place. His mind and intelligence is what sets him above almost everyone else, and his big brain power is what made him realize how unsatisfied he was with the world and how desperately he wanted to change things. See, the moral of the story is don't be too smart, everyone, or else you'll turn evil. So put down that book and just watch YouTube videos all day instead. Anyways, Aizen is not just the type of smarty pants to sit back and let others do his bidding for him either. No, he's also an incredibly skilled swordsman and fighter who could totally devastate anyone in his path. So now that we're getting the 1,000-year Blood War arc in anime format, we're going to be introduced to some amazing new characters. One of them is Ichibei, and he appears after Yamamoto's demise in order to rebuild the Gotei 13. He's a beast of a man who knows a thing or two about names in general. His title from the Soul King is the monk who calls the real name, and his power allows him true name manipulation, which means he can do things like name curses where anyone unworthy of his name would lose their voice if they speak it, and he has the innate ability to determine the true name of all things, and can make you as strong as whatever he names you for a short time. For example, when he fought Yhwach, he called him Ant, which leads to Yhwach becoming as strong as an ant for a short period of time. Plus, he can essentially stitch himself back together after being completely slashed to bits by getting someone to say his name and then using that power to piece him into one whole again. Neat. Do you do better under pressure? Do you feel yourself thriving when the chips are down and everyone is counting on you? Well, if you are, then you probably relate to Valkyrie, who is one of the strongest fighters in the Bleach universe. Overall, he's the worst type of opponent to actually fight. He has an ability called the Miracle, which just allows him to win things if he's facing tough odds. So the harder you prepare to fight him, the harder it is going to be to beat him. So keep that in mind. And on top of that, he has the power to convert physical damage inflicted on him to energy that can increase his size and skill. Yeah, doesn't that sound completely unfair? The demon of the bloodthirsty sword does not sound like the person you want to invite to your house for dinner. There just seems like a lot of baggage there that I wouldn't want to deal with, and I'd be terrified of winding up his victim. Well, his real name is Kenpachi Zaraki, and he's unique in that he doesn't tend to rely on some fancy schmancy energy manipulation to get the job done. Nope, he just likes slashing you and cutting you into small bite-sized pieces, so definitely be careful. And yeah, he's super strong, but he's a little lower on this list because his best strength is also a major weakness. So he really enjoys fighting, so much so that he lowers his abilities so fights aren't over too quickly. But then when he uses his true powers to become even more powerful, he does also become vulnerable, so it's a tricky situation all around. I just like how in Bleach everyone has these amazing abilities, but they're all so different from each other, which creates interesting setups for fights overall. Lil Baro has a special skill in that he's one of the best marksmen in the entire series. He's sort of like Marvel's Bullseye in that regard, where he has perfect accuracy, but also his energy is so powerful that his rifle shots are able to pierce through anything and can't be blocked. Plus, on top of that, his Quincy is nearly unstoppable and has a secondary form which allows him to heal. Man, anyone working with Yhwach just all have ridiculously powerful and OP abilities, right? I think Ishida has one of the most interesting powers in Bleach. He has what's called antithesis, which means he can designate any two targets and then reverse what's happened between them. It's really strange and sort of fascinating. So say you're sword fighting him and you get all your hits in perfectly and you're the best swordsman in the entire world. Cool, right? Wrong. He could use that to switch things around where you suddenly were dealt all the damage you had inflicted on him and he swapped places with you to be completely healed and fine. How do you fight someone like that? There's nothing more dangerous than an extremely loyal person to a certain cause, right? Ugram Hashwalth is extremely dedicated to Yuhabak and his overall mission, which has led Ugram to become the most trusted second in command of the Sternritter. I mean, why wouldn't Yuhabak want him around? Turns out Ugram has the same power as the Almighty and can impart his own power onto other Quincy. Sure, there are some limitations, but it makes it interesting nonetheless. He also has an ability called the Balance, where he can infect you with bad fortune if you've had a string of good fortune recently. I mean, they don't call him the Balance for nothing. I imagine him and Thanos would have a fascinating conversation overall, don't you think?
You know, the Gote 13 are some ridiculously powerful people, even amongst Bleach's already stacked lineup. But even among these Shinigami elite, there's always going to be someone who's the best of the best. So let's sit back and take a look at these absolute powerhouses to see who takes the crown. Admittedly a relatively new captain of the division, Rukia lacks the experience in her role to overtake some of the others on this list. Of course, as our protagonist's main support, many fans had big hopes for Rukia's powers. Her growth has unfortunately been painstakingly slow and disappointing compared to her companions. Luckily, her new position as captain does feel like the right place for Rukia to gain the necessary experience independently and hopefully come into her strength soon. She still has some of the highest growth potential on the list, especially with her Haka no Togame, a total beast of a Bankai with untapped power beyond imagination. Now, even though we've put her at number 15, Rukia is by no means weak compared to most Shinigami, and with some more polish, could take anyone on this list. A genius chemist and inventor with a penchant for body modification, Kurotsuchi's adaptability is second to none. The mad scientist 12th Division Captain Mayuri Kurotsuchi is a difficult character to place because, on the one hand, his twisted creativity and intelligence, coupled with his ability to exploit his opponent's weaknesses with scary precision, makes him a tenacious opponent for many. On the other, because his skills are so specific, he's not a well-rounded enough fighter to be placed higher on this list. Kurotsuchi is easily overpowered by Ishida early in the series, and against an intense melee-style fighter like Zenpachi could easily be wiped out regardless of the tricks up his sleeve. Of course, not without doing some damage on the way out, which is why he takes the number 14 spot on our list. Being a wizard, Hirako already has a substantial amount of part Shinigami, part hollow spiritual energy. Being the leader of the wizards, you'd have to have a pretty ridiculous amount of power to be qualified. The current 5th Division captain and wizard leader Shinji Hirako gives us a good sample of his capability when he defeats Grimjo without much struggle early on into his introduction. His Zanpakuto is also one of the strongest and most difficult to go up against in all of Bleach, which earns him such a high spot on this list. The weapon releases a mist that confuses his opponent's senses, making an already difficult fight near impossible. Already off to a strong start, it could also be argued that he's barely gotten the chance to really show off his full capability. If given the proper time, development, and dedication to his growth arc, Hirako could easily become one of the strongest captains of all time. Complicated and angsty 6th Division leader Byakuya Kuchiki is, of course, the head of his family, the Kuchiki clan. Now, with this title comes some pretty sick moves passed down through the clan, but even without these, Byakuya is pretty much a pro at everything he tries his hand at. Genuinely one of the most well-rounded fighters on the list, Byakuya makes the most out of his entire arsenal of moves. From the start, his untouchable combat skills with a brutal Zanpakuto have tripped up most everyone who challenges him to a fight. To make matters worse for his enemies, Byakuya possesses an absolutely baffling Bankai which essentially tears 99.9% of his opponents to shreds. As a brilliant tactician, he also has countless tricks up his sleeve, including but not limited to a Shunpo technique where he is able to cut off his foe's spiritual flow so quickly that it almost goes undetected. Before they even realize they've lost the fight, Byakuya is able to assure his victory, which is why he takes the 12th spot on our list. Now, it's easy to overlook the sweetheart family man that Isshin is, but doing so is a fatal mistake for any of his enemies. Isshin can be an absolutely devastating opponent to those who underestimate him. The lighthearted former captain of the 10th Division and father to Ichigo takes the 11th spot on our list. On top of his razor-sharp combat skills, astonishing swordsmanship, and above-average durability, Isshin is also an expert healer, a rare skill that sets him apart from the other captains. He's also explained that past injuries keep him from properly fixing his Reiatsu, and therefore he's unable to activate his Bankai. Although, if he were actually able to, we wonder where he'd really be on the list. The young prodigy and 10th Division captain is an absolute technical dynamo, wielding one of the strongest Bankai in all of Bleach. A fan favorite, and for good reason, Toshiro Hitsugaya is one of the most anticipated captains among the Gotei 13, having secured his spot at such a young age. In basically all aspects, Hitsugaya is able to rise above the rest, oftentimes provoking jealousy from those who can't catch up with him. Factoring in how well he holds himself in a fight, despite not necessarily having a lot of clear wins, it's undeniably impressive. However, his naivete and lack of experience on the battlefield is hard to ignore and puts him behind the rest of our top contenders. He has historically been easily taken advantage of or manipulated by more experienced fighters like Aizen. This weakness will honestly be a non-issue as Hitsugaya continues to improve and perfect his own style of combat. He takes spot number 10 mostly due to the fact that he has an enormous potential for growth and time to catch up with his colleagues with his skills. Which brings us to number 9 on this list. As the main antagonist of the series, it's a no-brainer that Aizen would have to be one of the top 10. Now, because of his varied history and lost potential, Aizen is lower on the list than one might expect. Let's get into it. Former 5th Division Captain Aizen left Soul Society behind and used his strategic genius to wage an all-out war against his former colleagues. His power of persuasion also garnered him support from several other strong captains who defected alongside him on his quest for power. Yet bad decision after bad decision had Aizen biting off more than he could chew and did ultimately lead to his defeat and imprisonment. Of course, his essential immortality does earn him quite a few points, but his strategies usually end up getting foiled by our main good guys. Perhaps Aizen's worst traits are making the wrong enemies, which reveal his weakness easily and ultimately overtake him. Jushiro Ukitake is the former captain of the 13th Division, and for starters, he wields one of the absolute coolest and rarest Zanpakutos, the dual-wielded Sogyo no Kotowari. One of only 2 in existence, it is able to not only absorb energy, but reflect virtually any attack back to its opponent with ease. Even with a lifelong debilitating illness, Ukitake overcomes his challenges while maintaining an impressive amount of courage and composure. Already an accomplished warrior and ace swordsman despite his circumstances, Jushiro had incredible speed and enhanced durability due to his high level of Kido mastery. His spiritual power was said to be some of the greatest of all the captains, alongside fellow longtime captain and friend Shinsui. So much so, in fact, that he is one of the only captains able to stand up to Commander Yamamoto's flames and live to tell the tale. When his mind is made up, he does not hesitate to rush into battle with conviction, although this ultimately leads to Ukitake sacrificing his life in the 1,000-year blood war. Forced into exile over 100 years ago by Aizen and hiding among Urahara and co. in the human world, the often overlooked Tessai Tsukabishi is a unique and unexpected addition to the lineup. A convenience store employee with the grisly demeanor of a war-weathered man, Tessai was the Grand Kido Chief of Soul Society's Kido Corps and known as one of the strongest Kido masters in all of Soul Society. Now, if that wasn't enough for you, Tessai is also proficient in healing Kido as well as several types of forbidden Kido such as time and space manipulation. He also has a great deal of knowledge of past and present events in Soul Society, which makes him an invaluable strategist to any team and can use his Kido to a great extent without tiring. Yoruichi Shihoin is a natural leader and the former captain of the 2nd Division, commander-in-chief of the Onmitsukido, and the executive militia corps director. Seeing all her leadership accomplishments makes sense when looking at her staggering hand-to-hand combat abilities, seasoned assassin skills, and beyond that, the incredible and unique ability to transform at will. And being the commander of the Onmitsukido means her sneaking abilities are off the charts. Her ability to conceal her presence from even the strongest of foes is a testament to her jaw-dropping Reiatsu control. She's also able to use a technique that combines Hakuda with Kido to create a pair of pressurized Kido lightning wings. Do we even need to explain how awesome that is? While residing in the human world, fan favorite Kisuke Urahara lives out his peaceful days as a shopkeep. But behind a goofy, relaxed face is an alarming amount of power and a dark past. Urahara was the first president of the Shinigami Research and Development Institute, as well as the former captain of the 12th Division. You really root for him because Urahara admirably cares deeply about the Soul Society despite being exiled for exposing dark truths about mysterious disappearances in Rukongai. On top of an intellect that shines above the rest, Urahara is also a Hakuda master and wields destructive techniques unrivaled by many other captains on this list. To top it off, he possesses some serious strength despite a lanky frame. After spending less than 10 years as captain, his achievements saved the lives of many of his fellow captains and his research many more beyond that. Kenpachi Zaraki, 11th Division Captain, uses whatever means necessary to enjoy his battles. This is a guy who takes pride and joy in the thrill of combat and has the experience to back his skills up. What makes him a true monster is that he does all this without even unleashing his full strength in order to make each battle more challenging and fun for his own taste. By giving himself an extra challenge, Kenpachi heightens the danger and therefore his own enjoyment for each of the fights. He's also constantly searching for a worthy opponent to give his 100% with, ultimately taking the title of Kenpachi from his most formidable one. As far as his Zanpakuto goes, Nozarashi is also a destructive type and even transforms Zaraki into more of an unstoppable fighting machine with enhanced senses and physical abilities. Boasting unimaginable levels of pure strength, he manages to be an absolute beast while not even having mastered his Ryatsu. Despite definitely doing things the hard way, he takes the number 4 spot on the list by simply being a master combatant. Perhaps the greatest healer that Soul Society has ever known, Retsu Unohana was the 4th Division captain. Truly a legend amongst her fellow Shinigami and perhaps one of the coolest plot reveals in the series, Unohana is actually the first person to have been given the title of Kenpachi, proving how incredible her battle skills are. Once a generation, the title is given to the strongest Shinigami until the next Kenpachi defeats them in battle. Not only is she one of the strongest and most well-rounded characters, she's also been known to be a relentless adversary in combat. Unohana took on her eventual successor, Kenpachi Zaraki, countless times. Early on in the fight, she had him at checkmate, but just to continue having fun in their battle, she brought him back to life dozens of times, only to best him each time. He does eventually get the upper hand and take the title of Kenpachi, although it seems that if she really wanted to, she could have finished him off easily. Using her healing powers to save him during their battle only to continue winning is pretty OP in our book. The former captain of the 8th Division and current captain of the 1st Division is in a league of his own. Behind a peaceful and charming demeanor is a fighter willing to resort to playing dirty if it gets him the win. One of the oldest captains in Soul Society, Shinsui actually prefers to avoid violence. Underestimating him, however, is a fatal mistake. Shinsui is who you call when you need a job finished, no matter what it takes. It's that same kind and cheerful facade that throws off his opponents and gives him the upper hand. It can be off-putting when a smiling face hides a truly terrifying and erratic fighting style beneath. With his countless abilities, opponents have no way of predicting what he might do next. Shinsui and close comrade Ukitake are said to have vast spiritual power that absolutely dominates the other members of the Gotei 13. To top it off, Shinsui is a brilliant tactician and, much like many of his peers, an elite swordsman with an astounding array of abilities that could beat down any opponent mercilessly. One of his only weaknesses is the concern that the indiscriminate effects of his Bankai could also wound a comrade in battle. But with the right team, we're not so sure that counts as much of a weakness. After all, who else would be suited to take the number 1 spot as the captain commander of the Gotei 13 except the number 2 strongest in Soul Society? Among many Bleach fans, it is indisputable how staggering former First Division Captain Yamamoto is when it comes to power. One of the original OP anime geezers, Yamamoto does not disappoint when it comes to how awe-inspiring his abilities are. At number 1 on the list, here's how he took the spot. Yamamoto has one of, if not the most powerful Zanpakuto in the entire series. When in its Bankai form, flames engulf the entire surrounding area, indiscriminately dealing damage to friend or foe. Yamamoto's power is so overwhelming that there are Zanpakuto users that can't evoke their own abilities in the face of his inferno. If he wanted to, he could completely decimate Soul Society if his Bankai was used at full capacity for too long. His age and experience are of course a valuable asset, as he has the ability to actually resurrect former opponents through his flames and summon them to fight for him. The X-Commander is still a dazzling display of the best the Gotei 13 has ever had or will have to offer.
Anime has given us some of the strongest characters of all time. It's almost ridiculous how powerful and strong some characters get, with the nature of a lot of anime focused on accumulating strength. But who are some of the strongest anime characters ever? Let's discuss right now. I always find lists like these hard to navigate. Strongest anime characters of all time means a lot of different things. And sure, in reality, if I was giving a truly accurate list, then this list would be made up entirely of the giant multiversal game changers who can alter reality on a whim. But that version of this list would get repetitive and take away from some pretty strong characters who are incredibly powerful in their own way. So what I'm going to do is start off the list with some strong normal characters, both heroes and villains, and then near the end I'm going to get into the multiversal, universe-altering beings of pure power, okay? Okay, so the first character officially on this list is Saitama, better known as One Punch Man. And wow, is that not one of the all-time best superhero names that informs you of the hero's power? He defeats every single enemy with one punch. No matter if intergalactic warlords come to Earth wanting to conquer it, no matter if it's an insanely strong Earthbound villain, all of them will always be beaten by Saitama in one punch. And that puts Saitama in an interesting category. How do you make a world around him interesting when the whole point of the show is that nothing will ever be a threat to him? Well, I think that's something the first season did amazingly, but I did find my interest waning in the second season. But that doesn't matter. Saitama is one of the most powerful anime characters ever, and although he's played as a bit of a joke, it shouldn't detract from the idea of if any character on this list came into One Punch Man's world, they would probably be destroyed. Goku is one of the most recognizable anime characters in the world. Above all else, it's mostly known that the dude with spiky hair likes to unleash his fury and just fight it out. He's the epitome of the anime character on a quest to get stronger, and Goku will most likely continue to get stronger for the rest of forever. If you track Goku's progression throughout the Dragon Ball franchise, you'll see that they have to keep finding new levels and new heights for Goku to reach. It's the essence of his character that he has to keep getting more powerful. They'll never say, yeah, Goku's done leveling up. Nope, it just doesn't work like that. And overall, I wanted to make things fair. Really, this list could just almost be entirely Dragon Ball characters, but where's the variety in that? Yes, I'll mention one more Dragon Ball character a bit later on in this list who deserves a shout out, but for now, Goku is the face of the Dragon Ball franchise and is one of the strongest anime characters ever. And even if he isn't the strongest in his universe quite yet, I don't doubt that he'll eventually reach an unreachable god status. And then Vegeta, of course, will be just a few steps behind him. Mob from Mob Psycho 100 is a lot like Saitama, which shouldn't be that surprising since they share a creator. Mob is an incredibly powerful being with almost godlike capabilities, but who doesn't seem all that interested in using his powers. And that's what makes Mob Psycho 100 such a great anime. They really hammer home that yes, while psychic powers can be devastatingly powerful, if you're only good at that one thing in particular, then there's nothing special. Mob is unique in that he's the most powerful being being on Earth, and once he reaches 100% thanks to emotional outbursts, he basically explodes. But that also creates a tragic tale. Mob really just wants to have friends and be accepted by others, but in the beginning he can't really do that because he has to suppress his emotions so he doesn't unleash his devastating power. But man, whenever he does reach that level, it's an amazing sight to behold. The world of psychic powers and espers create dazzling visual spectacles in the world of Mob Psycho, and although it's probably bad for the world, I always enjoy seeing Mob unleash his power. I imagine the series is working toward a finale where Mob can both have emotions without causing a path of destruction in his wake. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is certainly, what would you call it? Oh, that's right, bizarre. It features a cast of quirky characters and basically reinvents itself for every adventure, following a different descendant of the Joestar lineage. And a lot of the characters could arguably make this list, but I'm giving the JoJo spots to the protagonist of Part 5 and the overall 5th JoJo, Giorno Giovanna. He was actually the illegitimate son of Dio and was conceived with Jonathan Joestar's stolen body. Yeah, this anime is absolutely wild. But Giorno is a natural-born stand user, and his stand, Gold Experience, is one of the most powerful stands ever. Stands are already arguably unfair when it comes to power levels, but Gold Experience certainly takes the cake after it reaches its full potential. After piercing Gold Experience with the stand arrow, its power levels are amplified, creating Gold Experience Requiem. But what makes this stand so powerful and earns Giorno a spot on this list? Well, it has the ability to revert any action that could harm our hero. So if you try to attack Giorno with something powerful, he can just block it by effectively turning it to zero. A common theme of anime is working to get stronger and reaching the next level, and that potential to be the strongest in the world is probably best represented by Deku in My Hero Academia. When the series started, Deku was just a quirkless individual who could cry with the best of them, but his selflessness caught the eye of the greatest hero, All Might, who then bestowed on him his one-for-all quirk. And the whole series has been about Deku harnessing that ability to become a true hero. And we've seen that Deku is on track to surpass even All Might in recent seasons of the show, with him locking into One for All's deep bench of abilities that Deku is hard at work mastering. He still has a long way to go. I mean, the 5th season still had characters in the first year of the Academy, which is sort of insane when you think about it. But when Deku does finally master this ability, he'll be the most powerful hero ever. Naruto is a series packed with awesome ninja action with a cast of antagonists wielding an incredible array of power. But really the most powerful villain and overall most powerful character is Kaguya. She is the alien mother of the Sage of the Six Paths and was the one who created chakra in the first place. This turned her basically into a god, and her abilities range from flight, telepathy, dimension hopping, chakra absorption, and general regeneration. And she can use her bones as weapons, which automatically makes her one of the most terrifying villains ever. And if she scratches you with these bones, you turn to ash. Brutal. Her ability to use the expansive truth-seeking orb, which can wipe out all of existence, is also not great for our heroes. They don't even really beat her, but rather just steal her away. That's how they beat her twice. And hey, I'm all about finding alternate ways to solve problems. Jujutsu Kaisen is packed with powerful sorcerers, so to stand above them all and take the top spot of most powerful requires some serious skill. That's where Satoru Gojo comes in. He's a grade 1 sorcerer who uses his cursed techniques to mow down almost anyone in his path. Every one of his abilities feels overpowered. I mean, that's the overall advantage of being the first sorcerer in the Gojo family in 400 years to be born with both Limitless and 6 Eyes. Both of these combine together to create just an incredibly destructive individual. We're just pretty lucky he used his abilities to eventually become a teacher at Jujutsu High and shaped younger minds, or else we'd really be in trouble. I've hit a lot of the main anime that everyone knows about, but also want to take a little time to highlight some lesser known anime and anime characters. Serial Experiments Lain follows a young girl named Lain in her connection to The Wired, which is a global communications network. With all the internet and especially Twitter focused attention we've been getting lately, I thought it was a perfect time to highlight Lain. So as the series progresses, we learn that Lain isn't exactly human. She's a sentient computer program that's been given a human form to blend into the real world. Her goal is to cut the barrier between the real world and the wired, and her abilities far surpass almost anyone or anything. She's omnipotent and exists both in the real world and the virtual world simultaneously, and can delete virtual information, which in the Serial Experiments Lane world is vital to everything. Yeah, it's a weird anime, but Lane is powerful. Strongest doesn't necessarily mean physical strength. Yeah, sure, most of the characters on this list are absolute beasts when it comes to fights and can turn your insides into a gooey jelly with one flick of their fingers, but there are other factors that should be considered. That's where Light Yagami from Death Note comes into play. He's an incredibly brilliant kid with an askew moral compass and massive ego, which on its own is already sort of dangerous, but not a big physical threat. But then the most powerful object in the universe lands at his feet, and it grants him the power to become a god. The Death Note allows him to eliminate anyone in the world. Rule 1 is the human whose name is written in the Death Note shall die. Pretty straightforward, right? But you give this object to someone like Light, and he basically is able to mold the world in his image. He becomes a godlike figure known as Kira, and his brilliance allows him to stay one step ahead of the people trying to stop him. Nobody else with the Death Note could have done what Light did, and that's impressive. You know, in a really terrifying way. Out of all the mythological creatures out there, vampires seem like the scariest. Sure, there's the raw brute strength of werewolves, but vampires just operate in this otherworldly category altogether. Anyways, let's talk about Alucard from the Hellsing series. Alucard is the secret weapon of the Hellsing organization and dresses like Carmen Sandiego most of the time. He's the most powerful vampire of them all, and that comes with some major perks. He's insanely strong and fast and comes with an incredible healing ability. Sure, we root for him, but he's also a pretty twisted individual. He often lets his enemies hurt him, only to regenerate instantly in front of them to really freak them out. Yes, he's kept in bounds and restricted a bit thanks to the Hellsing organization, but his true power levels make him one of the strongest anime characters. He's certainly one of the most stylish. Question for you. Would you rather be incredibly physically strong, or would you want unmatched psychic abilities? Yes, I think psychic powers make you overall stronger than physical fighters, but it also has the potential to cut loose and destroy all of existence. That brings me to another powerful psychic user in anime, Tetsuo from Akira. He had massive latent powers that unlocked within him, giving Tetsuo the ability to fly, levitate, produce energy blasts, you know, basic psychic abilities. But Tetsuo does represent the downside of always questing for more power. When I talk about characters like Deku, the hero's search to become stronger is framed as an inspirational thing, but Tetsuo is the opposite. His journey to get even more powerful corrupts him and almost brings about the end of everything. Thankfully, he stopped before he destroys our universe, but it's a scary thought to see how Tetsuo didn't even reach his full potential before being stopped. Alright, now that we're in the back section of the video, I wanted to discuss the godlike beings who can rewrite reality on a whim. One of the strongest, and the first I have to talk about, is the Omni King, aka Zeno. He's the king of all and the god of gods in the Dragon Ball franchise. I mean, can you imagine how powerful you have to be the god of gods? That's insane. It's been said that although there are 12 universes now in the Dragon Ball franchise, originally there were 18, and Zeno destroyed 6 of them because he was in a bad mood. He also looks like a plush toy come to life, so I have such conflicting feelings about him. Repeat after me. Never, ever, ever make a deal with Kyubey in Madoka Magica. I know the cat-like creature seems harmless and it can be quite persistent, but trust me, don't take that deal. Madoka Magica is an all-time great anime for me. Just a fantastic story flipping the normal magical girl arc on its head and becoming much darker and mature than probably a lot of people expected. And that all traces back to Kyubey, who is an incubator determined to turn young girls into magical girls so they can fight witches. Of course, Kyubey's motivations are much darker, and although the monster may not look it, it comes with an insane power level. It really cannot be wiped out and has the ability to grant magical girl capabilities to people, which Kyubey and the incubators use to help keep the entire universe in order. While Zeno and Kyubey are sort of adorable godlike beings who hide a massive amount of power, let's move to the other end of the spectrum and talk about the Truth, who's the godlike being in the Full Metal Alchemist franchise. Yeah, this thing definitely isn't cuddly. It's terrifying with a twisted, demented smile and should make you run the other direction. It's a strange being in that it's not some cosmic deity, but rather is all around us, holding the laws of reality together and enforcing it. You only really meet the Truth when you try to break established rules, like trying to bring someone back from the dead. Full Metal Alchemist is all about fighting against the natural order of things, and the Truth controls it all. Yes, it can be considered cruel, but it abides by the one big law, the law of equivalent exchange. If you want to make something, you have to sacrifice something of equal value. That simple idea is the whole basis of the Truth and makes a terrifying creature that occasionally haunts my nightmares. The Anti-Spiral is the big bad cosmic entity that our heroes have to beat in Gurren Lagann. The Anti-Spiral is the leader of the Anti-Spiral race who share a collective consciousness and wants to prevent the Spiral nemesis from being triggered. Gurren Lagann is the very definition of an anime that keeps escalating in power. I mean, our heroes literally start off underground on Earth, and it slowly builds to a massive cosmic battle where characters are chucking galaxies at each other. Wowza. But the main villain is the Anti-Spiral and is virtually godlike, who has the ability to erase enemies from existence but chooses not to. I mean, when you can travel light years with a single step, you definitely earn the title of one of the strongest anime characters of all time.
Ever wonder who would win if you put all the Hashira in a pit and had them duke it out? Well, look no further. Grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to argue in the comments about our Demon Slayer rankings, because it's about to get real. Now, Shinobu might not be the strongest physically, but she more than makes up for it with her speed and precision. One of Shinobu's most notable battles was against the spider demon Rui, who was a powerful demon known for his formidable strength and agility, making him a tough opponent for anyone to take on. Using her insect-breathing technique, Shinobu was easily able to outmaneuver Rui and strike him with precision, taking him down with ease. Her speed and agility proved to be too much for Rui to handle, and she was able to defeat him and protect her fellow Hashira. We also learned that although she is unable to behead her opponents, she uses a special wisteria-extracted poison to take down demons. This battle was a testament to Shinobu's technical skill as a fighter, and it solidified her as one of the most formidable Hashira in the Demon Slayer Corps. Just don't let her cute appearance fool you. She is a demon-slaying machine. The distant and mysterious mist Hashira, Muichiro Tokito, is introduced earlier on as a young character with his head in the clouds. This airheaded demeanor is totally thrown out the window when you realize that Muichiro achieved his rank after only 2 months, a feat only accomplished by one other Hashira. The particularly impressive Muichiro also developed his own skill within the mist-breathing technique. The obscuring clouds technique shows his skills on full display with a baffling amount of precision over his speed. This skill alternates between extremely slow and quick movements that confuse the enemy and allow him to attack in an instant if they show any hesitation. He's also skilled in the use of his bright red Nichiren blade, which is only wielded by those who have awakened their Demon Slayer mark. As the love Hashira, Mitsuri is no joke when it comes to fighting demons. The fact that she not only learned flame-breathing techniques, but also developed her own fighting style to fully maximize her potential should tell you all you need to know about Mitsuri. With a Nichiren sword resembling a whip and well above average flexibility, she is able to maneuver in a difficult-to-counter way, making her one tough cookie to fight. Originally, Mitsuri joined the Hashira in order to find a husband who could outperform her in terms of strength. This proved to be a pretty difficult task because of her immense level of brute strength. Despite a thin exterior, her muscles are actually 8 times as dense as an average human, and it's necessary for her to eat as much as approximately 3 sumo wrestlers to maintain her physique. Ultimately, finding a good match worked out for her in the end, but we have to admit that those are some high standards. Obanai, the rule-abiding serpent Hashira, may not have the most conventional fighting style, but his snake-related techniques are definitely something to behold. Iguro was able to achieve his rank with only one functioning eye, a limitation that could leave some vulnerable in a battle. He's also not the strongest physically, and he has a small stature. All these traits that would normally set someone back were not an issue for Iguro. His strict training and harsh mentality, paired with an incredible amount of endurance and speed, push him into the 6th spot on this list. Though he may not be the strongest of the Hashira, he was a major contributor when it came to bringing down Muzan in the end. It just goes to show that raw strength isn't everything. You need technique and stamina to be a good demon slayer. Now this doesn't come without personality flaws, however, as Obanai can be standoffish to those he perceives to be mentally weak. Certainly the flashiest character out of the bunch, Tengen Uzui is the sound Hashira and also a demon slayer to be reckoned with. When he isn't boasting loudly about flamboyance and festivals or something, Uzui takes the top spot when it comes to speed and number 2 in brute strength. He may be hiding some inferiority complex issues underneath the confident front, but he actually does have the skills to back up all his claims. With his sound breathing technique, he uses an acute sense of hearing to pull off superhuman feats like echolocation, as well as produce explosive sound waves that do some serious damage to his opponents. Even after losing a hand and being severely poisoned, Uzui is able to stand his ground in a fight with Gyutaro, an upper-rank demon who had defeated countless demon slayers. Despite his battle prowess though, Uzui does eventually end up retiring from his position as a Hashira after taking some serious damage due to his desire to spend more time with his family. This drew criticism from Obanai, but we think he made the right choice. The hot-headed wind Hashira, Sanemi, is, like his fellow Hashira, an incredibly skilled combatant with a wide array of techniques. One of the things that sets him apart as a character is his no-nonsense attitude. He is always ready for a fight and doesn't mince words when it comes to dealing with demons. In fact, he's been known to get a little carried away in battle, as evidenced by the time he almost took off his own arm while fighting a demon. Whoops. Fueled by his intense hatred of demons and an explosive temper, his intense fighting style has leveled thousands of lower-rank opponents. Wielding another bright red Nichiren blade imbued with the power of wind, Sanemi has an excessive amount of strength and jaw-dropping reflexes that make him basically untouchable to the majority of demons. What puts him higher up on this list was an incredible fight against upper rank 1 Kokushibo despite grave injuries. The fact that he was able to hold his own in this battle, albeit with some help, truly demonstrated the breadth of his skill and endurance, and after the fight finished, he recovered quickly to immediately go up against Muzan. It was also during this fight that he awakened his own Demon Slayer mark, significantly increasing his physical capabilities. Plus, he underwent some serious character development, from grumpy around the clock to a mellow, well-rounded friend to his fellow Hashira. Even though it's a strength ranking list, it does give him a few awe points. Giyu Tomioka is the Water Hashira, one of the strongest demon hunters in the Demon Slayer core, and we're not gonna lie, his water-based techniques are some of the most elegant and beautiful in the series. What sets him apart from other Hashira is his pragmatism and cool demeanor. He's able to think about many situations rationally. For example, sparing Nezuko instead of immediately treating her as a run-of-the-mill demon. Additionally, he is a strong addition to any team and is able to work seamlessly together with others, a necessary skill to take down many of the stronger demons in the series. Even the upper-rank Akaza recognized how powerful Tomioka was and offered to turn him into a demon, which was an extremely rare proposition only given to those deemed worthy of the right. Even if he was a bit of a stick in the mud, Tomioka beats out many of the other Hashira on this list because of what a skillful tactician he is. Although he suffers from an inferiority and guilt complex, he also seems to have one of the most sound moral compasses in the story, which makes him a good role model amongst his peers. This sensitivity, in turn, actually gives him the edge when it comes to the quick decision-making and mind games many demons put the Hashira through mid-battle. Kyojuro Rengoku, aka the Flame Hashira. His hakama is covered in flames, he uses a flame-breathing technique, his hair is flame-like, he likes spicy food, you get the point. He's the character that had us all wondering after watching Mugen Train, why did they have to make him so dang likable? Incredibly optimistic, a strong fighter, and basically the embodiment of a golden retriever, Rengoku takes the number 2 spot on our list today. His enthusiasm for his Hashira duties were unmatched, and he went into every battle with just as much passion and pure-hearted energy as the last. Not only is he one of the strongest Hashira, but also a fan favorite across the board. One of Kyojudo's signature moves is a powerful slash that appears as a dragon, carving deeply into the entire surrounding area where he uses it. Also, he's able to use his fire-based techniques to create shields, barriers, and maneuver quickly to evade attacks. During his fight with Akaza, the upper rank 3 demon praised his skills highly, even so much as expressing admiration for Rengoku's strong fighting spirit. He possessed a special extrasensory perception of his surroundings, often detecting his enemy's intent or even specific abilities and weaknesses of the demons he was fighting against. Ultimately, Rengoku was defeated by Akaza during the events of Mugen Train, but not before doing some serious damage on his way out. Finally, that brings us to number 1. Gyomei Himejima, aka the Stone Hashira, is a total beast in battle, and the strongest demon hunter in the current generation Demon Slayer Corps. First and foremost, his massive frame sets him apart from the other 9 as he towers above them, sporting an extremely muscular build. Now, despite his kind of intimidating look, Gyomei is a total sweetheart who is in touch with his emotions. Blind since childhood, his other senses have become extremely heightened to compensate for his lack of sight. Using his superhuman hearing, he's able to detect the subtle movements of his enemies and even discern if they're lying or not due to the tone of their voice. Gyomei also wields a massive Nichiren spiked flail and axe, with which he uses the sounds of the chains to determine the trajectory and movement of his weapon. He's also gone up against Kokushibo, who holds the upper rank number 1, the strongest ranking under Muzan himself. After fighting him on equal ground, Gyomei then went on to back Muzan into a corner with his brilliant tactical skills and sheer power. His total mastery of stone breathing further sets him apart from the rest, as his acute hearing and super strength pair into one and maximize his use of his Nichiren axe to the fullest of its potential. He's also able to access the transparent world despite a lack of sight, and therefore can accurately read the situation and make a solid judgment based on factors like blood flow and breathing. Gyomei has also been shown manipulating his own blood flow to get the upper hand in his fight against Kokushibo. Often recognized by his peers as the best of the best, Gyomei maintains a humble perspective and a clear motivation for taking down some of the most terrifying villains in the series. The total heart of gold is always a plus, but his vast amount of physical strength, dedication, and battle experience make him an easy choice for the number 1 strongest Hashira in Demon Slayer. So, where do you think some of the former Hashira, like Jigoro Kuwajima and Sakonji Orokodaki, fall into the list? Be sure to let us know some of your favorite Demon Slayer details in the comments, and as always, thank you for watching. But don't miss out on our other anime content. Subscribing and turning on your notifications will give you instant access to all of the newest videos CBR Anime has to offer.